So as we continue looking here in this letter written by James, he's explaining at the very beginning of the letter about trials and about difficulties and yes, even about temptation. And this is a real part of our lives that we don't often like to talk about. As believers, if you're a regular church-going person, then if you're like most, and if we're honest, we have two people on Sunday mornings. We have getting ready to go to church people on Sunday morning, and we have getting to church people on Sunday morning. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? When you're getting around and you're running a little bit late, or a lot late, and panic begins to set in because your alarm clock didn't go off, the power went off, you forgot to set your alarm clock, the cat turned it off during the night, I don't know what it is, and you wake up and it's like 9. And the panic begins to set in, and you're running ragged, you're running rough, and you're panicking, and you're hollering, and you're fussing at each other, and you kick the cat out of the way, and the dog bites you on the way out the door, and you're out of gas when you go to start one car, so you go pile in the other one, and everything's going absolutely wrong until you pull in the church parking lot, and you walk in the door, and Mark and Donna Hughes are standing down there in front of in the main hallway welcoming people, and as soon as you open the door, you're fighting, you made me late again, hey! Now that's one thing, and hey, we've all done that, haven't we? Maybe this morning we've done that. But that's one thing. You see, the faces that we put on before other people often go much deeper than that because we don't want people to know who we really are. We don't want people to know what we really deal with. Because we think that if people knew how we were tempted, if people knew the things we dealt with, struggled with, if people knew our shortcomings and our sins, they would not think the same of us. My friends, I tell people all the time, one of the devil's best tools is isolation. Making you think that there's no one who understands. Making you think that there's no one else that's going through what you are. Making you think that there's no one else that is tempted like you are. That there's no one else who could possibly understand. My friend, the Bible tells us that we have a high priest who understands, and His name is Jesus. He understands. But you see, you and I as human beings are all traveling through this life the same. And we may have different temptations, but we're all tempted. I remember asking someone that was a senior adult a few years ago, I asked him, I said, do you ever get to the point where the things that tempted you when you were younger don't tempt you when you're older? He said, nope. He said, at least I don't think so. He said, I hadn't gotten that old yet, and he was about 85. He said, ask me when I get old. Folks, temptation is a reality, and struggling with temptation is a reality. And we need to understand the Bible tells us that the temptation is not the sin. Temptation becomes sin when we allow it to take root and grow. But the Bible also tells us how we're to deal with the trials and the difficulties and the tribulations and the temptations when they come along. In verse 12 here in James chapter 1, James writes, "Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love Him." Now, in the ancient games, people were given a crown, a wreath, when they won. It symbolized their victory. Folks, you and I need to understand God is not shocked when we sin. I heard Charles Stanley say, Dr. Charles Stanley, pastor of First Baptist Atlanta, say many years ago, he said that we need to understand God is not disappointed in us when we sin, because in order to be disappointed, He would have to be surprised. God knows we're going to sin. And my friend, because God is a sovereign God that knows everything, there's nothing God doesn't know, there's no knowledge that He is missing, He knows every sin we will ever commit. And we know He knew them because the Bible tells us that when Jesus died on the cross, He became sin for us. And in order for Jesus to become sin for us, that means God had to have a full roster of every sin you and I would ever commit. And because God had that full roster, only when the debt was fully lined out could the debt fully be paid. My friend, if there was not an itemized list of our sin, some of our sin might not have been paid for. But we know that God knew all of our sin long before you and I were ever born. And when Jesus died on the cross, His death paid for all of it. That means each and every one of us, potentially, through Jesus Christ, have a clean slate. In one of the Sunday school classes this morning, they went through and each one of them had to read a little piece of paper where they read the name of some person and what they did. And there was 10 of them, and one was they had to read. It said, "My name is John Smith, and I don't need anybody or anything." Another one was, I'm so and so, and I'm a heart surgeon. I'm very important. Another one was, I'm Brad Pitt, and I'm a good-looking celebrity. And and it went on down the line. And the last one that they read said, "My name is not important, but I am a sinner saved by the grace of God." And the point of reading all those things was that it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done when you stand before God. The only thing that matters is what you have done with Jesus Christ. And my friends, if you and I surrender our heart and our life to Jesus Christ and receive the forgiveness that He died on the cross that you and I could have, then you and I are set free. Now, we're not set free from trouble and difficulty, but we are set free from the bondage of sin. We are set free, potentially anyways, from the worry that comes along with it. And you and I have been freed and empowered to live in a power greater than ourselves. We have been enabled to do something beyond what our capabilities are. Folks, do you ever think when you're driving down the road, what an incredible experience that would be to somebody who lived 150 years ago? You and I take driving down the interstate at 65, 70 miles an hour completely for granted. Do you realize that the only way people 150 years ago went that fast is if they fell off a cliff? And their 0 to 60 run was pretty much a one-time deal. Now, y'all, it's no secret by now that, yes, I like fast things. I like automobiles and trucks first and foremost. Motorcycles, I like to watch them. Airplanes, I like to watch them. But I like a powerful car. And to me, most car people will tell you that there's no such thing as too much power. But there is such a thing as too little. My car, yes, it has a Hemi, and it's pushing about 400 horsepower, and that's the way it ought to be. I like a car that's got get up and go, and you get in it, you push on the gas pedal, and you expect it to get out of the way. Some things get out of the way faster than others. A couple weeks ago, I had my car in being serviced, and I was given a loaner, and it didn't have a Hemi. It had a micro version of the engine that should be in a car, and it was a nice car, but that wasn't what I was used to. I'd gotten used to having something that had a lot of power, and I got in it, and I pushed on the gas pedal, turning out on Dwayne Hampton, and I thought the car had stalled. I thought, you got to be kidding me. Because you get used to a certain degree of power, and when something doesn't have it, you notice it. I mean, there's a huge gap there. My friend, you and I as believers in Jesus Christ, if you and I ever truly experience the liberating power of the cross, we will never be able to substitute it for anything else. My friend, once you've experienced the power of the cross, there is no going back.